sure to be a series because I'm not about to upload this all at once because it'll be 5 hours long. Recently, I started to empty my storage unit. I had a storage unit because I'm an art student and I have oodles of things, but they keep raising the prices every few months, so we're emptying it and getting rid of it. So in doing so, I am going through everything that's in it. And we're gonna see what I want to keep, what I don't want to keep. So I've been doing that for a while, like at least a week-ish now. And I've come across a lot of artwork from college. In college, I got a art degree, a Bachelor of Visual Arts, specifically in drawing. And then I got a music minor and an English minor. But because my major was art, I have an absurd amount of artwork because all of our projects, all of our homework, all of what would have been our essays, whatever, finals, was artwork. Our studio classes, all of our classes were studio classes, all of our classes were 3 hours long, and they weren't labs. The class itself was 3 hours long because pretty much the entire class, all you're doing is hunched over a desk, drawing, painting, cutting linoleum for printmaking, making a ceramic pot, like whatever the fuck your interest is. But, so I have oodles of it. Some of it I'm very proud of. Some of it's on the wall behind me. That's later on in the series because we have to work our way up there. We're gonna go through what I went through to get to what's hanging on the wall. What's hanging on the wall is my thesis. Part of my thesis. I haven't put it all up. But, so we're gonna go through this journey. I'm gonna keep what I like, I'm gonna get rid of what I don't like. To tell you the truth, I've already separated it. Back here is what I'm keeping, and then over here in front of me is what I'm not keeping. But I figured it would be interesting. That's so rude. Why are you just going over? It would be interesting to see, I guess, what I consider good and bad, what I did. And this isn't even all of it by a long shot. When I first graduated, I went through a bunch of my college stuff and got rid of it. So this is kind of the best of it, but now I'm like super downsizing it to, will I put it on a wall? And if I'm not gonna put it on a wall, then I don't want it anymore. But I'm gonna show everyone on here, so that's documented. I'm also gonna take pictures of it if I'm getting rid of it, so that if someone loves it and I put it in the trash or recyclable or whatever the fuck, we can make friends. So let's get started. We're gonna start with what I'm getting rid of. Excuse my drink. We're gonna start with what I'm getting rid of. I'm gonna supplement it with, some of this has, you do things multiple times until you get the best one, and so I'm getting rid of the extras. Is where we're going. Let us begin. These are not in any order. I also don't remember most of the years that I did this. I did 4 years of college. And these are from any of those 4 years. So don't ask me ask questions like that because I don't know. This is a full pack of index cards. Basically, our art classes were, we would have some sort of specific project, such as use a whole deck of index cards, which is 84 index cards apparently. And for this project, we had to take an object and then make 84 index card size drawings of said object. And so basically what happens is, because you have to make so many of these, even if you are a realistic drawer ass bitch, such as myself, you dilute it into abstraction. You do. It just goes full abstract. So my project, I did it based on a flower vase, like a vase with flowers in it. I don't have it anymore. So just trust and believe it was a vase with flowers in it. And then made these 84 drawings. And then you use these 84 drawings that are diluted into abstraction, and you make an abstract artwork, which I do have and will show you. But first, we're just gonna go through some of the drawings. So remember, this is a flower vase. It is like fall colors, purpley, orangey, like they're little fake flowers, and they're in like an orangey-ish vase, and then they have some leaves. So, circle on a stick. You're gonna see this come up a lot because basically I'm just trying to make it through 84 of these cards. So I'm diluting it into basic shapes, do the same shapes with multiple colors, I get you multiple cards. Girl, when you have to do 84 of these, it doesn't matter how good you are at drawing, you're not about to spend your entire life making 84 of these look good. But this was the project. And they're just on index cards, so like it's not good paper or anything. I made these out of metallic watercolors and markers? Alcohol markers, I think, something like that. And that's a pretty decent representation of the vase shape, you know? And it just, negative space, I'm trying to do something, you know? It's so tedious. And then to turn this in, we had to lay every card out across a foldable table. We didn't have real tables in our class, we had foldable tables. For reference, so I have an art degree, but it's not from an art school. It's from a school that offered art, let me specify. We're the least funded and smallest department of the entire school. Like, my graduating class was 14 people. That's it, 14 including me. So this is where we were. So we had foldable tables. And we had to share a lot of space. You know, you get the gist. I also just made a mess, but now I have to clean up. Don't worry about her, don't worry about her. So what did these become? This is what they became. If you're wondering, my teacher didn't like this. This was for specifically drawing, a drawing class. My teacher did not like it. She didn't like the colors, she didn't like the concept. My teacher didn't like me, which was interesting when that's my emphasis and I have to deal with her like, what, 20 hours a week, if not more. Anyway, I liked it because it reminds me of the Lorax with the fucking trees that are just sticks with poofs on the end. That's honestly what I was going for by the end of it. Also, so there's lots of hacks in the art department when you're doing projects that are tedious and annoying. One of the hacks that I use here is to do the same thing in different colors because that counts as a change, right? Or the same thing in different media because that counts as a change, right? This hack is don't use a full sheet of paper. This isn't even paper, this is actually mat board left over from a different project that I cut. So now I don't have to use up the full piece of paper. I did this a lot, mostly because I hate backgrounds. I hate them. If you look at my thumbnails, there's not a background. And I did it on purpose. Anyway, that was Definitely not senior year. It's either sophomore or junior year. But the tediousness gives me junior year feelings. So I took a printmaking course in my school. There were 6 emphasis options that you could major in, but you had to take at least the beginning course of all 6 of them, basically because they didn't believe you if you told them that you knew your emphasis when you came in as a freshman. Which, to be fair, most people did actually change their minds about what emphasis they wanted, or they came in not knowing what emphasis they wanted. I was not that bitch. I came in as drawing, I left as drawing. The options were drawing, painting, printmaking, photography, ceramics, and sculpture. Sculpture and ceramics being differentiated between sculpture is like metal, found object, like whatever the fuck materials, whereas ceramics is like clay specific materials, shit that needs to go in a kiln, that sort of thing. So for my printmaking class, I did different, very basic prints. This is one of them. I think this is my best copy. So this was a scene from Gone with the Wind. And it says, after all, tomorrow is another day. I know there's tea and shade around Gone with the Wind, but as a historical piece, I think it's very interesting, the book and the movie. Especially because the movie has so many mistakes. Not just from the book, but like there's like a Coca-Cola in one of the scenes. There's like a lamp with an electrical cord in one of the scenes. It's very interesting. Plus like a whole Clark Gable, the whole tea, the whole shade, the whole like just the history of how Gone with the Wind the movie was made is so interesting. Hit myself in the face. So interesting to me. So for this project, I had to layer colors on top of each other. If you don't know, to do printmaking, you can't just put on all the colors at once. It has to be one color at a time. It's very similar to screen printing, if you've seen that, where you have like ink and you're putting the ink on and you lay it flat, and then you put the ink on the thing, and you can either put the stamp here, because this was a giant stamp, right? So you have like, imagine this is a stamp. Put the stamp on it, and then you can either put the paper face down, press on it, or you can do the opposite, where you have the paper down and you put the stamp on it and you press, right? That's how you do it. And so all of this detail had to be carved. And this is the final product, basically. So I had to make 4 stamps, technically. What I did was I think it was called reduction stamp, where basically you start, as far as inking, you go light to dark, right? And so everything is negative space when you cut on a stamp. And so I would cut what I needed for one color, then I would print it a bunch of times on a bunch of pieces of paper. Then I would cut what I needed for the next color. So for this, it went white, skin tone, red, black. And I cut it all out of one piece of linoleum. So it couldn't be replicated, which is like part of the whole reduction thing. This is like a one and done print. I have the layers somewhere. So here's a good example. So first, you have to trace her. We have to trace Miss O'Hara, right? I just printed out a still from the movie, traced over it, right? Then you can reduce it into however many colors you want to use. I use 4. So then we see everything that's black, everything that's red, everything that's skin tone, and everything that's white. And you take this on like a piece of transfer paper or something, put it on your linoleum, carve it out. put ink on it, print it, then you do the same thing. You put this down, you carve it out. Like, it's a long, strenuous process. I loved printmaking, I will say. This sounds like I'm very annoyed at printmaking. I'm not. I fucking love that class. I wanted to take more of it. I didn't like it enough to switch my emphasis to it. Like, let's be very real here. But I had a very, very enjoyable time in printmaking class. Another thing I did in printmaking, this was actually my first project for printmaking, was this triple self-portrait. I just took 3 photos of myself, photoshopped them together, carved it into linoleum and printed it. I'm pretty sure the project was just self-portrait, like, period, because a lot of times in an introductory classes, your first art project will be sort of like a baseline project so that the professor can see where you are as far as like the media and stuff like that. So it's usually very vague, such as self-portrait, do whatever you want, you know? So I did, it's not a triptych, but 3 phases, 3 different pictures. And then there was a self-portrait exhibition sometime during my time in college. And I did this for it because we were supposed to be showing specific emotions and I was stubborn. So I did this. I don't like it. I like the actual, like the triptych, but I don't like this that I did here. I don't know what I was thinking. I also don't know why other people liked it. Not the thing I'm most fond of. This was my final. It is my face turning into a skeleton with like leaves and vines on it. And it has extra little pieces that like come out to the side. And I do really like this piece, and I'm pretty sure, so I have like copies of everything because printmaking is all about copies. So these are like extra copies I don't need. I only need 1 copy, right? But I did it in green, and then it looks black, but it's really a dark blue. And then I did it in orange and purple. I like the green better, to be very real with you. I think the green reads a lot better. And then I also have these to show kind of how I did it. So I did that. That was also from just 1 stamp where I carved in 1 color, printed it, and then carved in another color and printed it. So this is what without the blue looks like. This was the first carving, and then on blue was the second carving. So that's kind of cool to see. And then this is actually how I set up to do the carving, where I printed out a picture of myself to the size of the stamp block I was going to use, took tracing paper, overlaid it onto the photo, and then traced how I wanted like the bones to look in my hand and like stuff like that. And then I took this piece of tracing paper, put it on the linoleum block, traced it onto the linoleum block, and then actually carved it. So next we have the project that was the lead-in to my thesis project. So this was one of my final projects for junior year of school. And this one dips into my keep pile, because this was a set of 6 and I'm keeping 1 of them. So I started looking into folklore, specifically the original lore as opposed to the Disney lore, because I find the original far more entertaining. And then I made ink drawings of scenes from the original stories. this is Original Beauty and the Beast, or that's where it's like derived from. This is Original Snow White. And like they kind of connect with the leaves with the tree trunks. So you have Snow and the Queen. And then this is Original, I'm pretty sure Cinderella. And this one's the weirdest one. This one's the most different. And when I say original, obviously there's different versions of the same thing, different originals. So, like I know there's some sort of Asian story of like basically Cinderella with gold shoes, and like there's different versions. I found, I'm pretty sure these are European versions, like old European versions, because specifically in this one, she gets pushed off a cliff and eaten by a whale. And then she gets saved. Which is an interesting thing to think about. But I like the way I drew her coming down into the whale. Don't worry about that whale is way too small or she's way too big. That's none of your business. Mind your business. This was technically a still life. We had to bring in an object of importance to us and then draw it, but we couldn't draw it just like a normal still life. Like we had to fuck with it some. I forget the actual instructions. We had to fuck with it some. So I have snow globe that my now husband gave me, but he was then my boyfriend, because I collect snow globes. And it has blue oil instead of water, and it is a winter scene with trees, like empty trees, because I really fucking love winter. And the snow globe is very dear to me, so I brought it in and I decided to draw it. So this is a piece of mat board, and then blue drawing paper, and then some charcoal, some colored pencil, some little specks of silver foil. I don't really know if you can see them. So this is kind of looking through it and seeing kind of the colors of the classroom through it. That's where the red comes from. And then this is light reflecting onto my table. I don't like it. I did okay in school. I don't like it that much though, to be very honest with you. I'm not a big mixed media girly, so I don't know what made me like, this is glued on paper onto a mat board, so I don't really know what made me do that. But you know, a time in my life. Next up are 3 of 9 originally, where I had to do, it was repetition and symmetry? It was repetition and something. And basically I didn't like the project, okay? So I was like, how the fuck can I weasel my way into finishing this in one class period and then just pretend that it took me longer, right? So I was thinking about it, and then I came up with Rorschach test. Repetition, because I can do a bunch of them quickly. Symmetry, because you just fold the paper and then it's the same on either side, right? So like this went over so well with my teacher. This is also a drawing project. This went over surprisingly well with her. And I just went with it. I was like, yeah, I just really thought about this like really hard, like, you know, it means all this stuff to me and like whatever the fuck. No, it doesn't. I didn't want to do this project. I put drops of ink onto a piece of paper and folded the piece of paper and then hung it on a wall. That's what this is. That's all it was, you know? So this is 1. These are my favorites of them. This is 2. Got in some watercolors there. The first one was ink, and then this is also ink. And what they don't tell you about when you go to art school is that a lot of it is knowing how to talk your way in and out of things. A lot of it's bullshitting, because there is no true grading scale in art school. It's all a gray area. There is no like absolute right, absolute wrong. So you can talk your way to an A. But on that same coin, you can talk your way to an F. Like, there are some people who are not good at talking about things who would dig themselves a hole and then fail in it, basically, because they talked about the wrong things. It's so subjective. It's so up to your professor. If you can talk, if you can snooze, which is also part of what they teach you, is how to talk about your art well, because the whole thing is you want to sell art. So you need to learn how to talk about it to make people like it and make people want it. Because it's the whole thing. So she liked it, so I went with it. I was like, yeah, this has really deep meaning to me, you know, therapy, whatever the fuck. I don't remember what I said because it was a lie, but you know, art things. This was not a project, this was practice for me. I specialized in drawing people in pencil, charcoal, and pen. So this was practice. I think that side of it's good. And then I think this eye is fucked up and I don't know what I did to it. I never finished it because I fucked up the eye and it was gonna be too much work to erase and fix the eye. So I was like, this is just an unfinished practice. Okay, this goes back some. I'm pretty sure this is art 1. It's an abstract challenge. Abstract challenge. I sound like this is like fucking Ink Masters. No, this is a 4-part abstract unit where we have to do multiples, and then it's based off of a still life because beginning drawing and beginning painting are only still lifes, and it is so boring. God, it is so boring. I'm not a still life bitch. I hated it. And then they would also want you so badly to draw it from life, which means to sit in the studio and draw it. If anyone watching this is in art school, let me tell you a secret that saved my fucking life and my social life and my relationship life because I didn't spend every waking moment at the studio. Take a picture with your phone from the exact angle and lighting of where your view is on every still life and draw it from the picture on your phone. Print it out if you need to, print it out, grid it, do whatever the fuck you need to, but draw from the picture on your phone. That's what I would do every time. And I was told not to every time. But guess who's not in the studio after class? Professors. And us art students stick together so we don't say shit. I took a picture. This was my professor. She was adjunct, I forget the official name. She had graduated from grad school and she wasn't an actual like professor at the school. She just would do a couple classes. I loved her dearly, she was amazing. But she set up this really intricate still life with like these things hanging from the ceiling, and it was like themed around kids' stories for whatever reason. And I really liked, oh, and it had a lot of fabric in it because fabric's hard to draw, so they love to just throw fabric in there. And I really liked the little hanging things. I'm starting to notice a pattern because these also look like my circle trees from the beginning, you know? So that's these, and then I guess they had a purple tint. I have no idea if I just went with purple. And that's what these are. These are watercolor and pen. And then I probably sketched them out in pencil. But for sure, every still life I ever did, I took a picture of it. Except, with the exception of when I drew a person. Because pretty much every time I drew a person, they were naked because they were from life drawing or life painting, which obviously never take nude photos of people. That's really fucked up. So on that, I would not. I would actually go to the studio It's a lot of, obviously the model's not there after class, so it's a lot of like sketching in things that you can't finish in class so that you know what to do out of class to prepare for the next class. There's a lot of sketching stuff in. This was a still life from either freshman or sophomore year. Did I say? Oh, I actually wrote it on the back. It's from freshman year. It's from my first drawing class. And it is Project 17 Cotton, apparently. So we had to make a picture of a cotton still life. So that's where this is. It's too much of a southern vibe for me, but I thought it was a good showing of still life. It was an okay unit. But I added in copper foil. It's gonna give a little bit of a shine. Can't tell if you can see it, but this is like charcoal, watercolor, ink. It's a lot of mixed media and drawing classes for whatever reason. I know the reason. It's because I was not at a true drawing school. I was at a drawing school. I wasn't at a true art school. I was at a school that offered art. So everything is condensed down into what would be separate classes. This is one of my first, I know this is from drawing, my first drawing class. Okay, the back of this one says drawing 1, which is my first drawing class, and then it says project 3, continuation of line. So this one was all about lines, and this is a covering on it because it is so loud. It is charcoal, and charcoal, unless you spray the absolute shit out of it with some sealant, will just dust the ground for the rest of your life. So this is a branch with some drapery, and then I did a bunch of hatching and pointillism. Hatching is line shading, and then pointillism is like dot shading. So like the closer the dots are together, the darker they look. The farther the dots are apart, the lighter it looks. It's very popular techniques. God, that paper is so loud. Those two are both very popular techniques in tattooing. Here is an example of something we did in my still life class. It's very faint because this wasn't a complete unit like drawing. This was warm up basically. The way they did our, I also said still life class, light drawing class. This is where I had a model in front of me. We would have like our class would be in a circle around the model, and we would have to draw the model. Half that class was warm up, which is annoying, and then the other half would be working on like an actual finished piece. And I don't like warm up and drawing because it's boring. I hated it. My teacher did not like that. I did not like warm up. She also didn't like how I drew things because I would start with however big I'm gonna make the head and then do all of my measurements, because a lot of making a body proportionate is doing measurements based off of some arbitrary unit that you have to decide as you're like, you know, fucking looking at a piece or looking at a person or whatever the fuck. That's where you see like in TV shows and movies where you'll see people drawing a person. They be doing this shit. I don't do that shit. I would do more of this because I'm doing girl math measurements, you know, girl math, just with your hands, with your fingers. But it's basically what they're doing is they've made the size of their thumb the size of something, and then they're measuring based off the size of their thumb to figure out the proportions. So that is a real thing that we do, but usually in TV shows and movies, it looks fucking obnoxious and stupid. I would always start with the head and then work my way down / across, whether they're standing or laying down. And my teacher hated that because they would want you to hold your pencil at the back. I don't have a pencil to demonstrate, but they want you to like hold it at the fucking back so that you have less control, and they want you to do these big swoopy movement lines for the whole body and then draw in your body. And I absolutely fucking hate that and think it's fucking stupid, because if I'm doing these big ass swoopy lines, how do I know my head's about to be proportionate to my body? How do I know my hands aren't about to be too big or my arms too long? And they're like, that's part of the process. Fuck you. Fuck your process. If you can't tell, I'm a very opinionated art student. Continuing. This was a unit, wobbly paper. This was a unit specifically on draped fabric, because draped fabric is a very, I personally don't think it's hard to draw, but I also draw people, which is supposed to be the hardest thing to draw, and I don't find them that challenging. I find animals more challenging than like cloth or people, to be very real with you. But then some people are the exact opposite, they like animals. It's whatever. But this was a draped fabric unit where they pretty much just hung up sheets on the wall, and we would have to you know, sit in front of it and draw it, or you could be smart and take a picture when the teacher's not looking and draw it from your apartment. But this is watercolor and colored pencil, I believe. This is from Drawing 1. It is Project 12, and it's called 3 Objects. So this I'm getting rid of these so I don't know where I'm protecting the covering, you know? So basically for this is, they set up a still life. I'm telling you, the first 2 years of drawing and painting are just still lifes, and it's awful. But basically you have to pick 3 objects, have a still life set up, and then draw them as proportionately accurate as possible. This wasn't about shading or anything like that. It was about proportions and making it as close to correct as you can possibly do it. So that's why there's a lot of crisscross lines and stuff like that, because making a box and then making crosses and stuff is basically a way to draw ellipses and make them as good as possible, because it's very frowned upon in early drawing school to use like the little circle drawer things and like little ellipse drawer, like little tools that help you draw it, because you're supposed to learn how to do everything yourself without a tool, you know? The only thing they're okay with you using really is like rulers to make lines straight. But if it's a curve, they really want you to do it yourself, which is, I mean, it's a good thing to know, but in current climate, it's not super necessary, because there are tools so readily available. I feel like it's the same argument as like you want to learn how to do mental math because you won't always have a calculator. Like, it's fine to know how to do it, and it's probably good for you, but you do pretty much always have a calculator, so you don't really need to. You know, I can't do mental math, I really can't. I learned it when I had to in like 4th grade, and then I forgot it immediately, because guess what? Phones have a calculator. It's whatever. I'm an artist, do I need them? This was a architecture unit. Drawing 1, Project 5, Perspective. And I call this an architecture unit just because we drew building structures, but it was not architecture. I didn't take any architecture classes. I knew architecture students, we shared a building with them, which means we also shared like literal like classroom space with them. So I knew architecture students. I in no way, shape, or form took any architecture classes, and I specify that because those bitches are hard, because they're where art and math combine, and that is my worst nightmare. So this was outside one of the art buildings. It's like a sitting area with trees and stuff that they planted. And my teacher specifically picked this spot because it had all the planking, and she wanted us to draw the planking, which was annoying and tedious. This is for, it didn't say, I'm pretty sure this was my end of my junior year drawing class, right before I went into senior studio. And this was a self-portrait in ink. It was an ink unit. By the time you get to junior year, you start actually having much bigger stuff where you can kind of do what you want. And so this one was self-portrait. You can kind of do what you want. I don't know if we were required to use ink. We could have been. This is black ink self-portrait in it's more so illustrative style than a realistic style. I forgot words. And I like it, but I would do it differently now, which is what always happens. With art, you would always do it differently as you get older. So that's why I'm I don't really want it, because if I hung this up, it would bother me and make me want to redo it the way I would do it now. Fun fact, when you go up for senior studio, you actually have to get allowed in. You don't just automatically get allowed in because it's your 4th year. You have to do a presentation with all of your best works from all of your semesters to prove that you are basically ready to do your thesis. This was one of the ones I included, and it was probably the most illustrative thing that I included, or the most taking something real and making it look more illustrative than real. And I had to argue as to why that wasn't a bad thing, because one of the professors that I had to argue this in front of asked me if it was a mistake. That didn't hurt my feelings at all. I argued my way out of it because I'm good at talking. And so by the end, she did like it and she did understand it. But that pissed me the fuck off, because I wouldn't hang it on this presentation wall in front of you if it was a mistake. Also, welcome to the art world. They ask you if something you put your heart and soul into was a mistake. Fun times. Pastel. Specifically chalk pastels, not oil pastels. Oil pastels can fuck themselves. I will die on that hill. Oil pastels absolutely fuck you. These are chalk pastels. We had to copy a famous piece. That was a few of our units, was copying a famous piece, just because when you try to draw in someone else's style, it's a good learning technique to figure out how to make things and how to go about drawing things. So this was a pastel practice technique. So this is one of the few ways that you can kind of accurately grade something, where it's okay, you're trying to copy something that already exists. How close did you get? That sort of thing. I do like it. Again, I would do it differently now. But fun fact with that one, I did that in my then boyfriend, now husband's dorm room on the floor. And chalk pastels kind of get everywhere as you see me wiping them off my hands, because they're made of chalk. So it gets in the air and it gets on everything, and you're not supposed to do it in enclosed spaces, technically. But I surely did do it in a dorm room. And then I only told him, well, now I was halfway done. I was I should probably open a window. But your lungs are fine, you'll be fine. He appreciated me a lot. Yet another. I say yet another, I've only shown you one other one. This was in another architecture unit that we did. It's still drawing 1. This one is 1-point perspective. I think the other one was 2-point perspective. Yeah, I don't think it was 3. I think it was 2-point perspective. This was a hallway in our art building. It was actually the hallway that connected the art side to the architecture side. And as you can see, it's funky as fuck because it's 2 separate buildings, and then they did it as did a funky connection hallway to it because it's the architecture building, so things can't be normal and rectangular. And so that's why she picked this hallway, because she knew it would be hard to draw. And none of us liked this unit. It was good for our soul because it's anything hard to draw is good practice. But we all hated our existence, and then also when you saw us in class doing this, our class was in this hallway on the ground, and then you either had the people who were sitting like this and drawing, or you had the people who were just on their stomach flat out in the middle of the hallway drawing, because we didn't care. College is a fun place. You can lay on the floor in a very busy school building and no one will question it. But they also knew we were art students because obviously we had our big ass drawing pads and my fucking professor was right beside us. But yeah, we would just be in the way and draw things. And then the last one is a preview, because this is already so long. We're gonna cut this into another part. But this last one is a preview into this nice part of what I'm keeping, and then also preview into my thesis above me. I did a bunch of sketches for my thesis pieces. I need to find a better way to say that because that sounded like Reese's Pieces. For my senior projects, I did a lot of pre-sketches. This is one of them. I did my senior project, my senior thesis. It makes it sound more official because that's honestly what it was. It was my thesis. Was on umbrella term Celtic folklore. More specifically, Merrows, Banshees, and the Goddesses of Avalon, which is Irish and Welsh folklore specifically. So this was one of the possible sketch ideas for one of my 2 Merrow pieces that I did. A Merrow is an Irish mermaid, and they have a much different story than Cinderella. Ariel is the mermaid one. But basically, she gets trapped by a man above water and she doesn't want to be there. So I was going through different hypothesis ideas of how you could portray a mermaid getting trapped by a man. So this is one of them, where he's pulling her out of the water. I did not end up going with this. I actually ended up going with something that was much more hard to draw. I did a mermaid in a fishnet, which meant I had to draw the holes in a fishnet. I wouldn't recommend it. I would not recommend it to anyone. Because that probably took me 60 hours to do that piece. So just imagine a full week of work, whatever your job is, 40 hours, plus another half a week of work. Split up, well, you also have multiple classes. It did not take me a week and a half. It took me maybe a month and a half in real time to actually finish. But what I'm saying is 60 hours total. Yeah, this shit takes forever. People don't to realize that because they're oh, you're just drawing. Don't you want to do it for free? No, bitch, you can pay for my labor. I don't care if I have the supplies. That's different. I just told you that it took 60 hours to do the finished piece. 60 hours, a week and a half of work. You gonna pay me for it. That's how this works. But we're gonna end it there. This is section 1. That was all images that I am getting rid of. So that is stuff, I wouldn't say it's subpar, it's stuff that I will not be hanging on a wall, so I do not feel the need to keep it. The next round is going to be stuff I would hang on a wall / just haven't gotten to it yet. And And then eventually we'll work our way to stuff I have put on a wall in my whole thesis project, which is a lot of explaining. But I graduated in May of 2020. Fun fact that is honestly one of the worst parts of my life. I didn't get a final show. The end of your college career as an art student is a final art show that you put on to the public. And that's pretty much a universal thing for like any bachelor degree or master's degree art student. There's not a PhD for it, if you're wondering. Weird. Well, not weird. It kind of makes sense. Whatever. But I decided to graduate in May 2020. We all know that was probably the worst time ever. Well, one of the worst times ever. And that meant I did not get my show. That meant I did not graduate. Well, I graduated, but I didn't walk across the stage. I walked across a convention center in November of that year. Because in May we were still on technical lockdown. And then when they opened it back up, they were like, oh, but you can't come to school, but we will have sporting events. Tell me your school doesn't care about you without telling me your school doesn't care about you. But I graduated in May 2020. So I never got to stand up and say my thesis. I actually did my final as a PowerPoint presentation on Zoom in my dining room at my parents' house to 3 professors when it should have been a public viewing in front of anyone who wanted to see it slash all the art faculty and staff and students. So this is my redemption arc. This is me getting what I didn't get in May of 2020. So y'all are gonna have to hear the whole spiel. I had a whole thing. I had a whole thesis. It was 11 pieces, which is more than normal. 11 finished pieces, a whole thesis. I have so many connections. I did so much research. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. I got tattoos because of this. Like, we're gonna go through it. I'm gonna get what I deserved. I'm gonna just show my work. Just all we fucking want. Other than selling it. Selling it would also be fucking nice, but most artists make art because we fucking feel like it. So, until next time. Also, if you're wondering, I have it set up it's my iPad on a stool, and then there's a mirror on the other wall, so I can see if I'm in the frame or not. But then I like looking at myself because I think I'm pretty. So if I'm ever looking like right over there, I'm looking at myself because I think I look nice.